Welcome to the We Are Wake Tech podcast with your host, Wake Tech President, Dr. Scott Ralls.
Hi, I'm Scott Ralls, and welcome to a special episode of the We Are Wake Tech podcast. Recently, I had the opportunity to join Barbara Humpton, the CEO of Siemens USA, on her podcast, The Optimistic Outlook. Siemens is a very important company for our community. Their Wendell site, e-mobility and energy, to their construction, to their work in healthcare and imaging, there's headquarters in Cary. Siemens employs a lot of people from Wake Tech and a lot of people who are through apprenticeship programs, which we talk about in this podcast. Check out some of the highlights from the Optimistic Outlook podcast with Barbara Humpton. We position ourselves as the region's ladder college, which means for us how we structure our programs. We say rung by rung, so there is not a ceiling. You can move as high as you can, and I'm only limited by my grit and my persistence in terms of moving forward.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Humpton, CEO of Siemens USA, and you're listening to the Optimistic Outlook. Recently, we devoted an episode to some exciting developments happening at our manufacturing facility in Wendell, North Carolina. The team there is producing the technology needed to electrify American critical infrastructure. They're also installing a state-of-the-art microgrid to power our operations with renewable energy. In that episode, we heard our guest, Brian Dula, highlight the need for partnerships to build a pipeline of talent to run our facility and support the growth happening across American manufacturing. And I wanted to follow up with one workforce partner that Brian mentioned, Dr. Scott Ralls. Scott is the president of Wake Tech, a community college in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's leading an institution that's a national leader in connecting workforce and education opportunities. At Wake Tech, students of all ages access technical training and professional development to ladder up, as Scott says, into a variety of careers. Did you know it's possible to start learning and earning as an engineering apprentice before graduating high school? Did you know there's a fast-track, non-degree program that can help people rapidly gain the skills they need to join expanding industries? This episode will highlight some of the lesser-known pathways to success, and will also uncover some of the barriers people face as we endeavor to build a skilled workforce. Let's get into it. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
It's wonderful to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Well, Scott, in leading Wake Tech, you're hearing from your business and industry stakeholders about what types of skill sets are in high demand these days. And you're also able to interact with the incoming talent that employers are hoping to reach. I want to explore this dynamic a bit. People might have seen more EVs on the rise, and I know EV ownership has increased significantly in North Carolina. They may not connect that to the bigger trend. Behind them are new industries offering exciting careers, and not just in response to electrifying transportation from personal vehicles to transit, but truly in the effort to electrify American critical infrastructure writ large. What are you hearing from industry leaders, and how is electrifying infrastructure creating business growth and maybe even changing workforce needs?
Well, I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're a tech hub. We're a fast-growing community here in the greater Wake County area. Electrification is not something that you hear commonly people talk about, but you see it all around you, and we can see it in the job growth. We see it in terms of companies that are creating chargers in our region, nanotechnology battery companies. So we see it in the jobs that are being created and the utilization. But you can see it across the sector. I worked with the telecommunications industry nationwide a little bit on a national task force. And so as we move to 5G, you see it in telecommunications. Certainly energy is part of the conversations as we move with AI. So we see it all around us. And what that's doing is it's creating an even greater emphasis on technical skills, particularly, what we've traditionally thought of as electricians and others who have the skills to work in this kind of environment. For many years, I think we underinvested in technical skill areas and perhaps for some underappreciated what those roles are. And now with the burgeoning demand, we're seeing the challenges hit us even more in terms of the workforce. In North Carolina, right before COVID, if you looked at the licensed electricians, 70% were above the age of 50, but only 10% were below the age of 40. And so, there's this pent-up need because of natural retirement that's happening, but then the growth of the demand from the electrification and all the different industries. So for those of us who are in the workforce business, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for us.
I'm so glad to hear that. That really jives with what we're seeing at Siemens. And actually, let me just pick your brain for a minute, because as we've gotten started with the new presidential administration, we've got a new Congress coming in. We've seen some changes of policy, of course. And one of those things is eliminating EV mandates. And yet my sense is the wave of electrification isn't going to slow down. Likewise, we've recently seen market turbulence around, AI offerings. And, what does that say about the demand? And I would say once again, the gating factor for Siemens and our work in electrification was not how many data centers do we need. It was how fast can the grid grow in order to meet the demand that, we see this wave of data centers coming. I'm curious to get your perspective on this. I think maybe we weren't able to electrify fast enough. And so we've really got to keep going as quickly as we can.
Yes, and I think what's driving demand and what will continue to drive demand is technology. That is what is pushing us towards electrification, more so than policy. What's driving this demand is advances in technology. In North Carolina, we put a particular emphasis for a period of time of paying attention to technologies and energy efficiency across our technical programs. So, what we did in North Carolina, we didn't go out and create brand new little niche programs around specific technologies, but we embedded the notion of energy efficiency and different technologies within our program areas, like embedding solar within electrical or within our technicians for automotive. At that time, it was more hybrid, but moving towards EVs. So it wasn't about creating niche programs around a reactionary, different technology, but really embedding those core skills. And so, for us, we have to be jobs focused, but technology forward. And we pay attention to those technologies and where it's taking us. And that's why electrification, whether it's EV and automotive or, in other areas, it's just increasing the demand for these electrical, rip-rod skills. And that's where we're focused because of where technology is going. Yeah,
and you framed the skill shortage well. You've let us know that we do have this wave of retirements coming, and we don't see a big enough movement in younger people eager to take their place. What are the top challenges that we need to overcome to build this workforce?
Well, a couple of things. I think one we're starting to overcome, and something that's worried me for years, is the interest gap. And that would be a gap between student interest and where the jobs are and where the opportunities are. So in the technical education world, that's been a challenge for many years. I sense that that's changing, particularly in the last couple of years, for a couple of reasons, one of which is maybe we're getting over the either-or aspect of how we look at technicians. We have often said, you can go here or you can go to college. You can do this or you can go to college. Well, you can be an electrician, but you go to college and you can move up into different areas. But starting in these technical programs or emphasizing these technical programs can be an and to your career, not the or in your career. And I think what students and parents are seeing too is, we have an issue in higher ed, changed some of the perceptions recently because higher ed has become too expensive and not leading to the actual economic results that allow you to pay for the expensive higher ed that you had. Those who focus in the technical areas find that there's more opportunity than they expected and less cost sometimes. And I think that people are starting to see that. I think hopefully as a country we're appreciating the skills of these technicians because their skill sets are certainly moving up as well over time in a multitude of different areas.
You use this phrase moving up. And actually, the first time I met you, one of the first phrases I heard you use was, you want to help students ladder up. And what do you mean by that? What is it to ladder up? Why is that so important to you and to Wake Tech?
So ladder up for us is both a philosophy and a strategy. For us, first, it means positioning ourselves as an institution. So if you look at where we're located, the Research Triangle region, very much a higher ed region, and much of our economy was based on the strength of our great universities. Now, actually, the institution where I am, Wake Tech, is the largest college in North Carolina based on the number of people we serve. But outside of North Carolina, you're not going to hear as much about Wake Tech. Nobody ever mentions Wake Tech on ESPN, but we're a through college. We're not a to college. And people come through us, more people come through us than any other institution in our region. And they're going to stay in our region too. They come from our region, they're going to stay in our region. The question is, what will they do in our region? And so we position ourselves as the region's ladder college. And if you think about workforce training, shorter term workforce training, and that's something that particularly working adults that go to places like community colleges, a lot of times they need that quick skill set, that accelerated opportunity that will allow them to get a job. But too often that can be like a ladder with only the bottom rungs. I cannot keep moving up without that degree, but a college degree can seem like a ladder with only the top rungs. If we can bring the rungs together, then you can move up. And also from a motivational standpoint, if for many people who maybe their parents didn't go to college or they've been out of education, it seems like too big of a reach. And I can't jump that high, but I can climb a ladder. Most of us can climb a ladder, and so I don't have to get all the way up. I just have to get to the next rung, which means for us how we structure our programs. We say rung by rung, how non-degree programs will feed into our degree areas, how high school dual enrollment and youth apprenticeship, how we can build in apprenticeship into every program we can, how we stack our programs in terms of curriculum, how every degree at Wake Tech has one or more university partners. So there is not a ceiling. You can move as high as you can. So I can go rung by rung, and I'm only limited by my grit and my persistence in terms of moving forward.
I love it. And Scott, at Siemens, we are so proud to be a partner with you to help people ladder up. And I want to shine a spotlight now on some initiatives that really could be replicated anywhere. One is connecting people with the opportunity to join an apprenticeship program. We've tapped into your apprenticeship initiative at Wake Tech to co-create a program that's developing talent for our manufacturing plant in Wendell. And I'll share some highlights. It's 4 years. You attend classes part-time while being trained on-site with us at Siemens. You get to learn and earn. But at the end, you have a degree, a certificate in a skilled trade, and a job offer from Siemens. Oh, and by the way, apprentices can get started in the 11th grade. Now, Scott, what are some of the benefits to students and businesses you're seeing as a result of the new apprenticeship programs you all have put in place?
I always say, people will ask me, companies will say, what can we do for Wake Tech? And the first thing I say is be an apprenticeship company. And in the case here in Wendell, with Siemens, it starts with youth apprenticeship, which is the biggest commitment. What it means for students is, first, I'm not wondering about a job because apprenticeship is a job. I'm employed. And they also say I'm not worried about, so much the next thing, because it is based on I can see an opportunity in this. This company is investing in me. And I also see how I can grow in this company. I see students that are highly motivated in that regard. What I see for companies that are apprenticeship companies is they tap into the best talent at the youngest ages. So we've seen, and at Wake Tech, we're proud. Siemens is one of our very best, most important, but we have partnerships now with 160 different employers in Wake County in apprenticeship. And what we see through apprenticeship is that what's different is, rather than students being hired when they finish a program, they're hired more when they start a program. And that allows them to gain experience. That allows them to work in the career where they are. That allows them to grow. And what they really see is the motivation to finish, because with apprenticeship, step by step what's going to take to become a journeyman. And then when you become a journeyman, you get a pay bump, right? That's what apprenticeship is. And so for students, it takes out a lot of the questioning and things that can pull them away. For companies, it allows them to tap into, incredible talent. So, for us, it's becoming core to what we do at Wake Tech. But for us, that means we have to think a little different as a college. One, we sponsor apprenticeship to kind of take some of the the challenges away, particularly for small companies. Also, we have to structure our scheduling so students can work. Go to school for 2 days and work 3 days, or in some cases, go to school for 2 months and then go work for 2 months. And in North Carolina, you can take college classes free of charge. So our Siemens apprentices take those courses starting 11th grade, and then they work at Siemens while they're in 11th grade. And then once they finish high school, they've got college credit, but they can go to college free of charge in North Carolina as an apprentice and then keep working. I'm the biggest apprenticeship champion you can find because I've just seen it change lives.
I'm kind of curious, though, what we can do to draw more people in. Would you have some advice for us about how to promote these kinds of opportunities?
Well, I think one of the things we're seeing right now is really to promote it with other employers. For a while there, we were seeing the challenge with convincing students, convincing parents sometimes, even more so than students. And I think we're starting to turn that tide. Now we need a broader set of employers to really embrace this as their workforce strategies. I found that apprenticeship is a much easier thing to sell to parents and students right now than it has been, say, 5 years ago. And I do think there's a mindset changing of the value of the skill, the value of the role, but also the opportunity that it presents to students and the value added proposition, because you're getting paid to go to school. And here you're getting paid for your school. And you know what you're going to get paid when you finish the program, and you see the opportunity to keep moving up. And I think that's where apprenticeship is special.
I think I shared with you that the mantra in our apprenticeship program is no first step without a next step. And I think we are in a new era when lifelong learning becomes the watchword. We're all going to be introduced to all kinds of new technologies as we go, and you have the perfect ecosystem built to bring people in, whether they're young people, high school apprentices, or whether they're people looking to make a change of career. I want to dive a little deeper now into a program we've worked on together. We've talked a little bit about the pipeline of talent needed in the EV charging sector. And I mentioned that, there's a question mark about how fast will EV adoption go. Everything I'm hearing says people have understood now the performance of electric vehicles. And so that wave is going to move. Yes, internal combustion engines, there will still be an option, but EVs are going to be getting much and much wider adoption. So we need that workforce. The Siemens Foundation then provided Wake Tech with funding to create a field technician certificate course. It's part of our Everyone Charging Forward initiative, EV, everyone charging forward. And what it supports is workforce development efforts that break down the barriers that are currently preventing people from pursuing training and career education. I understand that the program you're launching is the first of its kind in the country. Tell us more about it. What makes it so unique?
Well, it is a pilot program, but it's a pilot program that's also based on investing in helping support others to grow the skill sets that are needed to grow the infrastructure of charging to support EVs. What will limit the growth of EVs is the infrastructure for charging. And so that's an infrastructure that is growing. In fact, we have here in the Research Triangle now, first time, people who manufacture chargers. What does that mean? You need people who have the skills for that infrastructure. It's an add-on. Sometimes we call them degree plus. It's a skill set you're adding into something. We started through the Siemens Foundation. It actually funded the North Carolina Business Committee of Education. It's an organization of business leaders in our state that is organized under the governor's office. And they funded Wake Tech to help create the program and then train the initial group that came in, and then also the pilot for training our colleagues, particularly other community colleges, to be able to deliver the program. So it's kind of building the skill sets for the infrastructure that is needed as EV starts to grow. One of the things that happens with a lot of these technical skill sets is you see intersections. You're seeing folks come from automotive or some come from electrical into this. We see this in other areas too, like building automation, where you see IT blended with electrical. And so, what's happening is there may be a core set of skills, oftentimes electrical or other areas, but you're adding to it. And so at Wake Tech, we're really trying to build more of what we call super techs, people who have the depth in the core skills, but the breadth in added skills that are needed.
And I think what we've heard from you, Scott, is some of those key components of what makes a workforce development program successful. One is having businesses who are signed up and at the table working with an educational institute like yours. Making sure that framework gives people access to critical technologies and skills, but puts it in context of real jobs to be done. I've heard you talk about, in essence, that growth mindset, the ability to say, I'm going to keep learning and I'm capable of learning. What am I missing? Are there other key traits that people should build in as they're thinking about workforce development programs?
You struck a nerve with me saying about the Siemens philosophy about what's next. So I think for students and for individuals out there who are looking to move forward in opportunities, you need that what's next, but you also need where do I start? And that's where laddering comes in. Where do I start and what's next and what does it lead to? And if we can make that, create that, and give that vision, then that gives the encouragement, but also the possibility for everyone out there.
I'm so glad you're preparing this workforce of the future. It has been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Before we close, I like to ask each of my guests about their own optimistic outlook. If we're able to successfully scale workforce development initiatives like these you've described to us today and help more people ladder up, how does this positively impact our future?
Well, it's opportunity, and if we think about it from a business standpoint and how we're aging, we're going to need everybody. We can't afford for anybody to be sitting on the sidelines, but we're going to have to structure our programs that we reach more people, that, as we say around Wake Tech, we rally around them so they stay connected to the ladders, but then we have to build those ladders, and we have to do it together. This is not something that, is going to happen in colleges and workforce organizations without the engagement of industry and the employers. And we're going to need your support. The more connected it is to these skills of the future, sometimes the more expensive it is, which means advocating for technical education. I would say the biggest commitment is be an apprenticeship company. Find out how to do that. Find the organizations you can partner with to do that. Help them do that, and then sell it to your colleagues of different employers, because that's opportunity for our business community. That's an opportunity for our economic growth, but it's also the opportunity for individuals that I think we all want and aspire to, for the American dream that we all dream about in the United States.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us on The Optimistic Outlook.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please go now to our show notes for resources related to our partnership with Wake Tech. You'll also find a link there to my LinkedIn page. Head over there to leave a comment about the episode.
Please follow us on social media and on your favorite podcasting platform. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks again to Ethan Hatch for that presentation, and to Barbara Humpton, CEO of Siemens, for including me in her recent podcast, The Optimistic Outlook. We're so appreciative of the opportunities that the Siemens Corporation provides to the residents of our community and the students at Wake Tech through apprenticeship and other opportunities. If you're interested in apprenticeship, go to our website at Wake Tech and just look for apprenticeship, and you'll find multiple opportunities like at Siemens or at 150 other Wake County employers that partner with Wake Tech. And thank you for joining us on this special episode of the We Are Wake Tech podcast. I'm Scott Ralls, president of Wake Tech and the host of the podcast. Thanks for joining us on this special episode.
I'm Joshua McKinney with your Wake Tech News Update. Wake Tech celebrated an Evening of Excellence at the Southern Wake campus, recognizing more than 20 faculty and staff members for their outstanding service and dedication. The ceremony also honored 8 students with academic excellence awards for top performance in areas like nursing, IT, and engineering. Each honoree received a commemorative plaque, a symbol of Wake Tech's deep appreciation for hard work and excellence. Wake Tech kicked off Spirit Month with a lively Founders Day celebration on April 3rd at the Scott Northern Wake campus, marking the anniversary of the college's charter in 1958. Students, faculty, and alumni shared how Wake Tech transformed their lives. Many of the speakers shared the same theme of how valuable the college's resources were to their academic journey. Wake Tech's Culinary Arts and Global Education programs hosted a special Chow Down dinner at Flavors, the student-run restaurant at the Southern Wake campus. Guests were treated to an elegant multi-course Italian meal prepared by culinary arts students, all to raise funds for an international study abroad trip coming up in 2026. Wake Tech is inviting prospective students and their families to explore its programs and facilities during Spring House on April 12th from 9 a.m. to noon at the Scott Northern Wake campus and Perry Health Sciences campuses. Attendees will tour classrooms and labs, meet faculty, and get support with admissions and financial aid, a one-stop shop to discover everything Wake Tech has to offer. And you can join us at Open House. You can register at openhouse.waketech.edu. For more news, updates, graduation on the horizon, visit us at waketech.edu. That's your Wake Tech News Update.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Wake Tech podcast. Join us next month for more insightful conversations about the programs and people of Wake Tech and how the college changes lives every day. Be sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast app to have each episode delivered right to your computer or mobile device. For more, find us at podcast.waketech.edu. To learn more about Wake Tech's exceptional educational opportunities, visit waketech.edu.